Welcome back, you beautiful people. What is better, carbon or alloy in a wheel? A question I want answers to, and I'm sure you do too. Let's find out. Bike Park Wales, a beautifully run bike park nestled in the valleys of South Wales in the United Kingdom, and a perfect venue to get a question answered. What is the best, carbon or alloy?
Alloy.
Why?
Price and just not ridden it.
Carbon or alloy?
Alloy.
Why?
Again, never ridden it. Don't think I need carbon.
Carbon or alloy?
Carbon.
Alley.
Why carbon?
Stronger and stiffer.
Why alloy?
Cheaper, more compliant.
Pete, carbon or alloy?
Carbon,
Why?
because I haven't broken them yet.
Good answer. Carbon or alloy?
Alloy.
Why?
I prefer flex, bit more give, bit more compliance. For my type of riding, I'm not clean enough. I'll destroy carbon, end up being out of pocket. They'll last me a lot longer. I get more joy from it.
Before we kick it off, let's talk about the wheels I'll be using today. This is the FSA Gradient i29 Carbon, and this is the FSA Gradient i30 Alloy. First up, what is lighter? Now, most riders think carbon, lightweight. I think the same too. Now, with the FSA Gradient i29 29-inch wheel set, that comes in before you start adding rim tape, tires, valves. It comes in at 1.7 kilograms, which I think is pretty lightweight for an all-mountain enduro trail wheel build. Now, the i30 alloy wheels, 29-inch as well, comes in at 2.29 kilograms, which is 500 grams more than the carbon wheel set, which is basically 500 grams of a bag of sugar. Now, if weight is something that you want to reduce, then the carbon one is probably more for you, or lay off the sugar. But also, you've got to consider rim material and spoke count as well. Carbon wheels are 24 spoke, whereas the alloy have 32 spokes per wheel. That has an impact on weights, but also on the feel and performance of the wheel. But we'll talk more about that later on in the video. And it's so easy to think less weight means less strength and less durability, but that's not always the case. Right, let's jump into it. So you would think 500 grams lighter than the alloy, the carbon wheel would have a lot less strength. But that's not necessarily the case, because pound for pound in weight over alloy, carbon is way stronger. And strength to weight ratio, you can put a lot less material into the carbon wheel to be on par with the strength as the alloy wheel. High tense strength is one part of the story. What riders really want is durability. Strength and stiffness on carbon fiber, meaning on a whole, right, they stand up well to forces and impacts that they experience out there on the trail. However, now if you go past the threshold of strength on a carbon fiber wheel, it can be quite detrimental to the carbon fiber itself within the rim. There's no turning back from that. You get hairline fractures within the sidewall of the rim. Also, where your nipple joins, it can actually pull through as well on the carbon, which, to be honest, the nature of carbon, there's no turning back from that. It is game over for the wheel. In contrast, the alloy wheel is a little bit more malleable out there on the trail, being that if it has the same amount of impacts as the carbon wheel, it's a little less detrimental to the wheel, because this would start to deform slightly or bend. You can fix that by using tools. You can use spoke keys or pliers to bend and manipulate the alloy back into shape. You can actually save the wheel and let it prolong its life instead of throwing it in the bin. Something else to consider is where and what are you going to be riding most of. Now, if you're riding a lot of rocky trails, such like this one right here, where you will suffer scratches and gouges in those rims, rocks flicking up, banging into the rim, then alloy is probably suited best here. Scratches and gouges on a carbon fiber wheel can weaken the structure in that rim, equivalent to its alloy partner, where it's, a little bit less detrimental. It's something to think about. So my long-term experience with carbon fiber wheels, I haven't had many issues, or one whatsoever. Now, I class myself as an aggressive rider. If I was running a Alloy wheel, I'm sure there'll be a little bit of a twist, a buckle, maybe a few spokes loose, definitely some dents as well, which nothing a spoke key wouldn't get out of, and a pair of pliers. I grew up dirt jumping and it was all about the alloy rim. You know, spoke count is a thing. More spokes, the stronger it is because of all those side impacts. Now, whereas if that was carbon, side impacts, it wouldn't last long, would it? Now, enough with strength and durability. Let's see how they feel on the trail. The difference between carbon fiber and alloy back in the day was down to stiffness. Stiffness being a more precise steering, better power transfer, and a more livelier ride. Particularly when you're talking about the rims. So stiffer the better, right? Well, not so fast. If you build a stiffer wheel, you lose compliance, a word you hear a lot when it comes to wheels. But what does it mean? If we look at the dictionary definition, compliance means the property of a material of undergoing elastic deformation subjected to an applied force. What that means in real terms is how much give or flex your wheels have. So a more compliant wheel gives you less trail buzz, chatter, and less fatigue on longer rides. That compliance also means that you're less likely to get knocked offline when you're riding rough stuff. So let's just say you come into a turn. With a stiffer rim, you might find you get pinged offline you're trying to take, whereas a more compliant rim will absorb the impact and it lets you stay online. It used to be that carbon fiber was noticeably stiffer than alloy, but over the years a number of wheel brands like FSA have worked super hard to bring in compliance into their carbon wheels. And that is playing with the carbon layup, different types of widths and depths of the rim itself, even to how many spokes you have in a wheel. So essentially, the more spokes you have in a wheel, the stiffer it's going to be. Now, this is where in the carbon fiber I-29 here, we have 24 spokes. And in the alloy one, we have 32 spokes. Now, this is where FSA have fine-tuned their compliance within their wheels, especially when it comes to the carbon. So you can do the same thing too. If you want some of the weight advantages of a carbon wheel, but want more compliance, look for a wheel with a lower spoke count, like the I-29. If you want the durability of an alloy wheel, but want more carbon-like stiffness, look for wheels with a higher spoke count, up to something like 32 spoke. With carbon wheels normally being lighter and more efficient, it's no surprise to see that all top cross-country World Cup races are using carbon wheels. Speed, acceleration and efficiency are the name of the game, so it's a no-brainer for cross-country. But when it comes to downhill World Cup, it's a slightly different picture. When Neil did a deep dive into the materials that pros were using, it was a 50-50 split between riders using carbon or alloy wheels. On one trend, it was riders using stiffer carbon frames would pair up with a more compliant set of alloy wheels, whereas riders on alloy frames would use stiffer carbon wheels. While a catastrophic failure from a carbon rim smashing into rocks might put some riders off, but that nature of winner takes all, downhill World Cup racers will take the risk and opt for ultimate performance. Now, if we look at enduro racers, they opt in for alloy wheels. They want the strength that the downhill have, but crucially, they want durability. In the Enduro World Cup, riders only use one set of wheels throughout a race day. This means having to withstand 5 timed downhill stages. So being able to fix any damaged wheels is a must. We've seen riders smashing alloy rims back into shape with rocks after racing a stage. Something you definitely cannot do with a carbon rim. Now, when it comes to longer race days, it's all about fatigue. Less fatigue is taken when you're riding an alloy wheel. But away from the track, away from racing, more aggressive riders use alloy wheels, especially in the bike park because of that sideways impact. And again, when you're riding super rough terrain, that fatigue, all that feedback you get through the trail is less on an alloy wheel. And also, when you're heading out there on unsupported big adventures, it's the norm to run alloy wheels. As a general rule of thumb, when it comes to performance in racing, it's a carbon. When it comes to durability and rough terrain, it's alloy. With that said, there's one factor that we haven't spoken about. That's right, cost. Now, you'll find that carbon fiber is a lot more expensive. And that comes down to manufacture costs, the materials that goes into it, the labor time that goes into it, and it all reflects in the retail price at the end of the day. Now, I'm going to use my wheel set as an example. My aluminium ones, the i30s, they come in at £600, whereas my carbon fiber ones are more than double, coming in at £1,500. So it does reflect in the costs. It's all down to performance. If you're going out there racing and you want those extra margins, you want those extra gains as such in time and lightweightness and, you know, the ultimate wheel, then carbon is probably the one for you. But if you're up for durability and giving it a good old thrashing, and cost is something that's on your mind constantly, then the alloy one is the one to go for. Plus, you can fix it by yourself, whereas a carbon one, if you destroy it, you're gonna have to put it in the bin. At the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preference and what you like to ride. And actually, it comes down to what terrain you ride a lot. Being if it's super rocky, you don't want to go end up buying a crazy expensive carbon wheel set where you know it's going to get destroyed. And the aluminium one is a little bit more durable, a little bit more compliant to that rough stuff, especially if you one that fatigues a lot. But it's, again, personal preference. Now, for me, I like alloy. I'm an aggressive rider. I like the durability of it. I like how compliant it is and how I can maintain it on the trail if it were to go south a little bit, which kind of does for me. Hopefully this video has explained a lot about carbon versus alloy, and which one would you choose? Let us know in the comments down below. It's turned dark, it's cold, and I need a cup of tea. Actually, another one. So yeah.